Hi, this is LeJune with LeJune Singleton LLC, Fitness, Health, Nutrition, and Wellness Podcast. Today, I'm talking with founder of Belle's Julz and money coach, Carmelle Cottrell. Welcome, Carmelle. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited that you asked me to be on the June. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to let people know what I do and how I can be of service and to give your audience some money move tips.
Yes, because this is definitely the time to talk about money during this pandemic. So, can you kind of give a background on who you are and how you got started in money coaching?
Sure. So, like June said, my name is Carmelle Cottrell. I am a career financial strategist. I've been in the game for about 15 years, and I've worked primarily in corporate America in the retail arena. So, I develop top executive leaders as well as create lucrative financial strategies. Like I said, been in the game 15 years, and what I've noticed when the pandemic hit, thankfully I didn't lose my job and I was able to work remotely. And, what gave me the pull to really take money coaching to the next level is I started to get requests from some moms that I work with. And they would be like, Carmel, can we get on a Zoom call? I need your mommy money advice. And after like the third request, I was like, wait a minute, I think I'm onto something here. And that's how the money coaching really just came to be. So yeah, it just out of, a tribulation came a blessing. And it's been something now that I've really been pursuing to really uplift women, specifically moms with children, because it's hard out here and we have to really make some tough decisions. And, we have to make that money stretch. So that's how I became a money coach.
So, is your target audience women or primarily, sorry, moms?
Yes, first women. I'm very much of the perspective of, I want to change the world. I want to change the future. And the easiest way to do that is with the kids. The easiest way to get to the kids is get to mama bear. So
Right.
once you're able to empower mom, you have the generational ripple of touching the kids. So primarily, I'm really about empowering women, but my heart's with the children. So therefore, my target audience is moms.
And what is the mission and purpose of Belle Jewels?
The mission and purpose really is just to empower women from the perspective of the tools that they need to really achieve their dreams, right? There's so many times as I speak to women, and I myself was in this position where we lay at night going through that negative thought loop of what if I can't have that? I'm not from here, so therefore I can't have that. So we just have this mental load that most moms and even women face that men don't deal with. And I thought it was so important that I really help women and free them, and then have them realize that everything that they need is already within. So a lot of times when I work with these women, they think that they have to go out and get these fancy degrees and do all these things. And I really help them realize that everything you have and that you need is already within your grasp. And I really empower them to just leverage what they have right now and expand upon it.
And that is so true because I know many of women struggle with money mindset. We were brought up and we believe that, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, you're just working to get a paycheck and to pay bills, and there's nothing left for you personally for vacation, for clothes, and also, you're buying food. So, what do you say to those women to help them change that mindset?
Sure. I mean, and I can admit that I was that person. I felt that, I had to care for everyone else. And as moms, we put ourselves last. And most women do because we take on that role of caretaker. So we care for everyone else. And then if there's any time left, and usually there isn't, maybe a little bathroom time, a little extra time in the car, then they spend that for themselves. And, there's so many dreams that we have within us. And then society tells us, our culture tells us that you can't have those things. And it's so sad. And, when I found that I was in that loop, I was just like, this is not what, I imagined my life to be. And
Right.
I want happiness now because I think there's this mindset that I will be happy when I have that, I have
Hmm.
this, I have that, and then I can be happy. And I definitely was that person. I would set all these goals for myself and I would achieve them, but then I still didn't feel happy. And I
Right.
realized that in order for me to be happy, I just had to decide to be happy. Happiness is a decision and it's a choice. And there is no real like happiness. Like if you were to look outside, you don't see happiness, you
Right.
don't see anger, you don't see hate. Those are all internal feelings. They're all things that we can choose to define for ourselves. So when that shift really happened for me, I became happy and then everything else just fell into place. So I really, work with women, really shifting that mindset to tell them that everything that you feel is all internal. So if you can define those feelings, and sometimes you got to fake it until you make it, and it's like a daily walk, and sometimes it's by every 10 minutes. And with June, the kids are back in school, and I will tell you, I am telling myself every 20 minutes, I can get through this. I can do this. I am happy. I can conquer all things. So you really have to have that mental talk to yourself. And it's not just a one-time thing. You really have to be committed to that mindset. But once you've accomplished that mindset, then I mean, the battle is already won. So I get so fired up in just really, empowering women to be like, no, your happy is right here, right now, but you have to make the decision to be happy. And then once you make that decision, like it just falls like dominoes. It's so amazing. And I just want to give that to so many people. So I really, and that's why I'm so thankful that you've given me this opportunity on your platform to just really encourage women that, we have the power. And I am so pro woman. And we have the ability to master create realities, right? We push out babies into this world. So
Hmm.
we have the power to create life, right? We have the power to create life. So why can't we create happiness?
Right.
When it hit me, I was like, whoa, I could be happy today, tomorrow, and everything else is just a
Right.
stepping stone for me?
Hmm. So, as we know, in this country, a lot of people, everything is centered around money. And a
Yes.
lot of people become suicidal. People kill themselves because they feel like they don't have enough money or they become bankrupt or whatever the situation may be. So,
Mhm.
what do you suggest? What do you advise for individuals that are feeling down and out when it comes to money?
So it's funny that you mentioned this because I did a live not too long ago. That money is just a tool of energy. If we really focus on money as an energetic tool and it's reciprocal, right? What you put in is what you put out. And oftentimes, I said, I think my post was like, are you open or are you closed? You have to be open for the energy to flow through, right? So
Hmm.
from the perspective of, we have a tight fist on our money. I got to save. I got to keep this. I don't know when the next one's going to
Right.
come. So your hands, your mind, your heart, everything is closed off to that energy. So you can't really receive the energy flow of money because we've closed ourselves off to it. So I really encourage people to give, right? That's one of the best ways to really open yourselves up. And they say, well, Carmel, I don't have any money to give. I hear
Yep.
you, but we have time, right? Time is money, right? Time
Hmm.
is just as valuable as money because there's only so much of it, right? So
Right.
I always encourage people to give. If you can't give money, give of your time and give in a way that feels good to you. I always tell people start off with baby steps, right? Because it is a mindset shift. So you have to get small wins. So I say give of what feels good. If you're someone that knows how to make someone else look good and say, you know what, that top doesn't go with this, but mix this together, then you start to feel good, right?
Right.
And that time and that energy that you pour into it, it opens up yourself to that energy flow. And then all of a sudden things just start happening because you're giving, right? So I always encourage people to really, assess, where are they? Are you closed off? Are you open? And, right now in my company, and a lot of times right now, a lot of companies are doing a lot of giving, right? Giving a
Mm-hmm.
lot of parables because, the pandemic is happening. Kids are going back to school, and there's a lot of lack right now from the perspective of like virtual learning. A lot of
Right.
people can't afford to pay for the internet. So there's a lot of times opportunities for giving. And I've been running up against people that are like, oh, I don't really want to give. And I have other people that are giving, but they're only giving from the perspective of somebody's watching me. So
Right. What am I getting back in return?
exactly, exactly. So I really challenge people, give with an open heart, you know, open your hand, open your mind and your heart, and it'll come back to you tenfold. So I think if we take on the perspective of helping others and serving others, and then saying, you know what, I give this out because it's going to come back to me when I need it right on time, that really helps to open that blockage that really occurs. And then I find that, even though we're separated at this time, there's other ways to give, right? Like me and you talking, we've got this energy flow that's happening.
Right.
So it's little things that you can do. Like you can, message someone on Facebook, how are you doing today? You look so great. I love that post that you did. So there's so many things that we can do to open ourselves up energetically to the flow of money. So in my group that I host, Queen's Money and Mindset Moves to the Throne, we talk about these things about like, how do you open up and how do you give? Because when you give, you can receive. And I
Mm-hmm.
work with a lot of, kingdom minded, spiritual minded women. And they come from the church. They grew up from the church. And, a lot of times they have traumatic events that have happened and they find themselves in blockages. And it's just really opening them back up to that love. Leading with love, I find, helps open that flow, and then the money just comes. And sometimes the shoe, like Carmel, you say the money just comes, my bank account's empty. But you know what? The ideas,
Right.
I feel like a lot of times we discount some of those money making ideas that we're blessed with. Those ideas that we don't really take out and pursue, like those are money making ideas. I'm a firm believer that we all have $1 billion ideas that come with us, and it's just up to you to act on them. Too often we want this handout, like we want somebody to give us something, not realizing we've already been given the $1 million ideas, the $1 billion ideas and empires. It's just we are expecting it in a different way. So that's the other thing, is you have to be open and really have no expectations or limits of like how the money is going to come. Because sometimes we're like, I need it to be in a check. I need it to be in a pay raise. And then we forget that money making idea that was like, you know what, this would be a great problem to solve. Well, how come anyone hasn't come up with this solution or this product? It's such $1 million idea. I'm like, because it was meant for you to bring it to the table.
Right.
And we miss out on those things. So I also encourage people to, money comes in many different ways. And a lot of times it comes first with an idea. So we really need to take that inspired action. And I find that when you give and when you're in that state of happiness and fulfillment, even if it doesn't look like it in your external world, if you fake it till you make it and keep that thought process going, that self-talk that you have with yourself, it'll manifest, it'll come through. And I'm 100% a witness, and I can give my testimony that I've seen it happen in my own life. And now I'm like, I'm just trying to tell as many people, the money is all within you. Let's fix the issue so we can get it
Right.
into your pocket.
And speaking of that, do you think it's more so past generational type situations that hold us back when it comes to money?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely think it's social programming. And then, especially from communities of color, our history of how we came here to this country, all of that comes into play. Even when we think about our mindset of you better get yours before someone else does,
Right.
those mindsets, they're very much ingrained in us. Money doesn't grow on trees,
Right.
who do you think you are? Nobody in your family has done that. Nobody in your network. So we are
Mm-hmm.
definitely programmed in that way. So it's so key. When I work with my clients, we really talk about those things to say, okay, let's really get to the root of it. So I really challenge people of like, what's your money story? What's your money baggage, right? What's your money history? There is no right or wrong. It is what it is. That's how we grew up. But I think it's important to understand, to get a perspective to say, okay, this is how I grew up. These are my trigger points with money. We all have those moments that, in hindsight, they're traumatic because they really change our trajectory of our life. But I think it's important to realize it's okay. It is okay because it's just a stepping stone to take you along your path in life. And everybody has a story to tell, right? And it's important that we have those things so that way when we do tell our story, somebody else will be like, you know what, that is me. And look at that person and look how far they've come. So I think it's important to understand that, yes, our background, our education, our history, our family, the national news, all those things play a part into how we feel about money. But it's important to realize and take control and power of it and redefine those things and use them to our benefit.
And you spoke about people having ideals when it comes to self-employment. I think one of the major fears is where's the money coming from and how would they be able to manage the money when it comes to that. So what do you suggest for those individuals?
Well, the biggest thing that I find is that a lot of times we do have the money, but what we aren't good at is organization. And I really work with my clients on just getting organized. Because once you're organized, then you can really set a game plan. Oftentimes, we find when I get my clients organized that money is just going out and they don't even realize it. They're spending buku money on groceries and
Right.
eating out. And then what they find out is that the money that they spend on the groceries, they're throwing it away because it's going to rot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things that I say that, I can easily find at least $1,000 a month. So far, I'm at 1,000. As I work with my clients, and I'm like, did you know that you spend all this money? That these overdraft payments? Oh my gosh, overdraft payments. When I tell you, so many people spend so much money on just overdraft payments, and that in itself, like, just getting organized and cleaning up your spending and really being intentional on it, we already have the money sitting there. We're just literally throwing it out, flushing it down the drain, or giving it to these major corporations.
Wow. So what do you recommend for self-employed owners how to manage their money? What do you recommend for them?
So I would definitely say from the perspective of once you're organized, you got your expenses organized and you know what's going out and when, and being timely from that perspective of really sitting down and say, okay, what is the goal that I want to accomplish? And I always say, okay, what's the annual goal? What's your long-term goal for, like, let's do a year. And then we work backwards to make smaller milestones to get there. And then when you're really strategic, when you've planned it out, then you know what you're doing and it doesn't feel haphazard. You can get really strategic about it and really leveraging, business credit, your own personal credit, and really understanding what tools are out there for you. But I think first it's really getting organized and then coming up with a plan and a long-term plan, with short-term milestones. And I think once you really have that roadmap, then it becomes easier. There is a strategy behind it. You know the steps that you're supposed to take, and you can begin to measure against it. A lot of times we take actions with no real clear plan. So you don't know, am I doing okay? Should I keep working this route? Because we don't have a baseline to to measure against. So that would be the number one thing I would say to anyone that wants to be self-employed is you got to have a plan, and you really have to be strategic with it and then measure. I need to come up with a better name, but I call it the triple A approach: assess, adjust, and act. You're always looking at it and saying, okay, how did I do? What was my goal? Where did I go off? What caused me to go off? How do I adjust? How do I change? How do I pivot? What are the things that I need to do? And then you can start to be strategic and say, you know what? I'm not going to go out for this month because I need to just pinch my coins just a little bit so I can invest in Facebook ads. So there's certain things that we can do, but a lot of times we don't know what we should be doing because we don't have that baseline game plan to measure against to say, am I doing okay? Am I doing great? Should I be doing more of this? So a lot of times we miss out on the opportunities because we just really don't have a baseline measurement to go against.
And speaking of that, how would someone start and manage a budget and stick to it?
Well, first, we really have to have that mindset of what do I really want to accomplish? So when I work with my clients, we go through the SMART technique. A lot of HR executives, they'll do this at the beginning of the year and they say, create a SMART objective plan where it's specific, it's measurable, it's actionable, results oriented, and time-based. Yes to all of those things, right? Setting those goals, using that funnel is key. I have a proprietary system with within my company where we use SMART, the same acronym, but we set intentions and then we get really clear about what those intentions are. And I really focus on, really meditating and creating a mantra to keep us focused on our intention, which is really the goal of I want to create a business that empowers people, that's of service. I really focus and I get my clients to focus. Yes, I understand the goal for you, but what does that mean for the greater community? What does that mean for your network? What does that mean for your clients and your customers? What service are you bringing to them? And I really get them clear on what is the value you want to bring to others, because, money is reciprocal. So you really want to get that energy right. And the way you do that is by giving to others. So really focusing on how does this help someone else other than you. And then once we get our intentions really strong, then we really access our power. And our power is really fueled by our purpose when we set those intentions. So when we really get clear about what that motivation is, then it becomes easy to stay on to the budget, right? Because then you realize that, my purpose is more than getting that Papa John's delivery. That's probably going to be $45. You know what I mean? So we're able to say no to the things that don't add value or contribute to the intention, the purpose of what my business is. And then it becomes easy. And then what we start to do, we get the wins. And then once you start to get small wins, because you start to see, oh, I was able to accomplish this. Oh, I was able to set some money aside. Then you get the momentum going. And then it's a beautiful thing. Because then you start to you trust the power that you have in yourself. And you're like, wow, I was able to save this money. I was able to stay on budget because you really focused on what the true intention was, what the true purpose of why you go into business. So I think that is I think that's the easiest way to get there. It takes a lot of upfront work, but once you do the upfront work, it just flows and it feels good. And it doesn't have that feeling of this is hard against it. And I really tell people that when you're doing anything, that we really have to trust our intuition and our feelings, because our feelings are our cue to say, no, you're in alignment, and no, you're not in alignment. So if it makes you feel happy, and the one thing that I tell people, if you lose track of time, that's the money spot right there, because you are just living in your zone of genius. And you want people to live in that zone, because then you just flow and everything is easy and you're being of service. And then what you produce is is beautiful, and people can pick up on that energy. And that's what you want your customers to pick up, is the love and the passion that you pour into it. But when you're out of alignment and it's hard and it's frustrating and you're irritable, people pick up on that too. And how they pick up on that is they don't buy. They go in the opposite direction, because like attracts like. So if things are out of alignment, your future customers see that, and they don't want to be a part of that. They want to be attracted to something that feels good. And the only way to feel good about it is if you feel good about it. So I really focus on, from that perspective of really shifting their mindset. Because once we make that shift, like, then it's like the training wheels come off and you are flying downhill. Like that resistance goes away and the momentum just picks up. And then like attracts like, and then it starts to just grow. It catches like wildfire. And it's such an amazing feeling to see it, to do it, and then to be able to spread with everyone else. And that's my biggest thing. I'm like, I want to catch a flame, right? I want everybody to be fired up. Because when we really, come from a place like that, it's beautiful.
I think that's definitely important. Okay. So speaking on savings,
Yeah.
I had a question that was directed for you.
Yeah.
So, what do you recommend to people who are trying to save, especially when you're having financial hardships and you're not bringing in enough income to save?
Sure. I love that question. You're not bringing in enough income to save. Saving is a habit, and you start small, but once you build a habit, you have the habit. So it really doesn't matter how much money you have. It's about creating the habit. So start off small. When I work with my clients, we talk about limiting expenses, right? And the two money buckets, I call them money buckets, and it's essentially categories of where you spend your money. And the two that a lot of people overspend are their entertainment and their food. But how I really help them is understanding that saving is a habit, and you don't make a certain income and then now you can afford to save. Because the same habits that you have with small are the same habits that you're going to have with great. So it's important that we build the habits, right? So it's not an income threshold to start saving. So that's a myth that I like to debunk. There is never a threshold of money that you're going to make where now you can afford to save. It's a habit that you need to create. So start small. So, let's start with $20, stash $20 away. I always like to tell people, create like an online savings bank account, something online where it's hard for you to gain access. I personally like the checking accounts because you can really find better deals in regards to the saving rates. But with the pandemic, I've been noticing that the rates are going down. But I always say get an online bank account, so that way you stash the money there and it's harder for you to actually access it. Start with $10, $20. I don't care, $5. Get into the habit of regularly pulling money out and putting it to the side where you cannot see it or touch it. Take it to the side and done. Then after a while, just say double it. So if I started with 5, then double to 10. Really keep growing and pushing yourself, because all saving is a habit. So what you want to do is create the habit. And then once you have money moving to the side, then you have that habit already there. And then when your income grows, it's not about having a certain amount. It just, the habit kicks in that you have to put money to the side, and that's what you do. And then what I like to say is, once you start to save, first is creating the habit. Then I like to make my money make babies. There's too many of us that have our money on birth control. Okay. We need the money to be fertile, right? I tell them to everyone, let's get the money fertile. Okay. We got too much sterility happening over here that we need to just start to save and then find ways to make our money make more money for us. So I always say it's a habit. There is no certain amount of money that you have to bring in order to save. You just need to change your mindset to say, I need to create a habit. Like we have the habit of brushing our teeth every day. We need to have the same type of habit when it comes with money and just saving and putting aside. And then I really encourage moms to, do the same thing with their kids. I really try to, whatever I'm doing with my money, I let my kids know and say, what are you doing with yours? Where's the money that you put to the side? Where's the money that we put to give? Where's the money to invest? And where's the fun money for you to do whatever you want with it? So I really say, whatever you're doing, you want to encourage your kids to do the same. And if you can't encourage your kids to do the same, chances are you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, right? So we always want to teach the kids the habits. So if there's a reason why you don't want to teach them something, it's probably because it's not the right thing. So what are the right things that we should be teaching our kids? And then we should be walking that walk as well.
That makes sense. And speaking on investments, we know it's Robinhood and all these new investments. What do you think about those dudes? I've read stories about it that it's not 100% legit. So what are your thoughts on those?
I find that most people, and I use Robinhood and there's Ally Invest and I've used them. I think the biggest thing that we aren't really clear on is when you invest, it's a long-term goal, right? It's not something that you put in and you take out real quick because that's how you lose money. So it really should be something as you kind of think as savings, right? You put it away and keep it there. And then you just watch it grow because the stock market goes up and down. It's very volatile. But when you look at things from a 3, 5, 10, 15-year, that long-term gain, that's where the money is. So we need to really, and I think this is really too with our culture of instant gratification. We have to realize investments is a long-term gain and you have to be willing to sit with it. And, I know it can be scary when you see, it's dropping and thousands of dollars are getting lost, but that's for the short term. The money gain is the long-term gain. So I really encourage people, what I do like about Robinhood and Ally Invest, it's really accessible. It's very easy to pick up and to trade stocks. It's on your cell phone, done and done. You don't have to pay a lot of pocket for, a stockbroker from that perspective. So what I do like about it is the accessibility that literally anybody can grab a phone, download the app, put a couple dollars in and buy stocks. I want to say like years ago, it was, the perception was only rich people, do stocks and trade. And from that perspective, it's for everybody. If you have access to a phone and the internet, you too can buy stocks. So that's what I do love about it. But I think the mindset of quick fix, I'm losing the money. I got to sell now. I'm losing. I think that is the opportunity. And then we have to realize it's for the long term. And that when we're looking at stocks, you need to look at the long term and what is the potential for the long term. So a lot of times we're just in it for the instant gratification. And we have to get that mindset out of our mind. When you're investing, the money is for the long-term gain.
So how would someone invest in stocks independently without because years ago you had to go to a specialist or you had to pay someone to put money into the stock market for you.
Sure.
So how can someone do it independently without having a middleman?
What I encourage people to really do is invest in things that you use, all the time. People use Facebook, people use Google, people use YouTube. Invest in something that you yourself have a personal connection with, because then it's something that you can really get behind from that perspective. I love Ally Invest from that perspective. I do love Robinhood from that perspective because it doesn't take a lot to get in. I do encourage people when to have a savings before going there, because the one thing that you want to do is have diversification, right? There's other things that you can put your money in, but first you should put your money in your own bank account before you start putting it in these companies, right? But it's important, right? There is stocks that you can do. There's real estate. There's having your own business. So I always challenge people to really think about the different avenues that you can get money from. And it shouldn't just be focused on one thing like stocks. Another thing is like precious metal, gold and silver. Those are also avenues, but it's diversification. Your 401k, right? Let's talk about your retirement. There's lots of avenues. And I think the important thing is to really, touch a little bit of everything. And it's important not to have all your eggs in one basket.
That's a good point that you touched on is retirement. In our community, a lot of people don't save for retirement, don't know what to do, what steps to take. What suggestions would you offer them?
I would definitely see, from your employer when you're working, what is your employer doing? Because a lot of times you get a lot of free money from them because they're usually bigger. They're able to, pull their resources as a corporation to help from that perspective. So I always say exhaust what your company is giving and then really think about, okay, so my 401k, I've got that. I've maxed out the contribution. Then you start to put your savings aside. Then there's also the 529 for your kids. So there's lots of different avenues. And I think a lot of times we just need to start asking more questions to get informed about what is at my fingertips right now that I'm not maximizing and really maximizing what's in front of them. Because a lot of times you don't have to go that far out. A lot of the things, a lot of the money is sitting right in front of us, and we just don't leverage it because one, we're not asking the questions and we're not really getting informed, and we're not really holding people accountable to inform us either. I have no problem calling my HR. I'm like, no, I need you to sit down and explain this to me so I can understand. Like, they're like, this is these people's jobs. So a lot of times, we hold ourselves to these standards of like, I've got to get my job done right. I've got to do it right. But then when it's other people, we don't really hold them accountable. And a lot of times people are supposed to be teaching us these things and making sure that we're clear and understanding. Like when you go to your bank, like when was the last time we sat down and had the teller just really get clear? A lot of times we just don't leverage the time because we don't, we're too quick and there's so many things happening. But there's a lot of things that we can take advantage of if we just say, you know what, let me spend an hour and just really get clear and, call this bank and sit on hold for 20 minutes and listen to this annoying music. But there's somebody on the other end that has the knowledge, and it's just a matter of just help me understand. I love to use that. Help me understand. And it tells people like, I'm open and I'm willing to learn, just pour into me, give me the information so I can leverage it. And then once you have the information and education and knowledge is power, right? So once you know the rules and the games, then you know how to play. And I think that's one of the biggest opportunities in our community is that we're just not asking people the questions, and then we're not holding them accountable to say, help me understand. I'm confused. Can you break that down a little bit easier? Can you show me a different example? Can you say it a different way? I got stuck here. Sometimes it's pride and ego where we just don't want people to think that we don't know things, but no one's perfect. We all have to be taught these things, and it's okay to ask questions. There is no stupid question except
Right.
for the one that goes unasked.
Right. And I actually worked for a company that did not, well, I was a limited grant funded employee. So retirement benefits weren't offered to someone in my position. So what would you recommend to someone that was in my position that didn't receive retirement from the job? And it's people that's been there for over 25 years. So when they retire, they have no benefits.
Yeah. So I really, when I work with women, and I find men don't have these issues. And I think it's a lot of our social programming. It's about negotiation. It's about saying, this is my worth. This is what I bring to the table, and asking the question. Because a lot of times, they give you that corporate song and dance, and we just stop and we don't push back and we don't ask and we don't renegotiate. And then we don't say, you know what, I get that you don't offer that, but can you go back and ask the question? This is what I bring to the table. This is how long I've been with this company. This is what I've been able to do for this company. This was what I was able to do for the last company that I was with. Are you sure you want to lose someone like me because of this? Go back and ask somebody a question, because a lot of times the people that you're talking to, they just need to go ask somebody else for permission. So a lot of times, and especially with women, we don't negotiate. We don't say, go back and ask somebody. Go back and ask someone. And then if it does come back as it's a no, okay, so let's renegotiate, right? How about you give me some more money in my paycheck? How about you give me more paid PTO? And then while you're on PTO, what money moves can you be making on your time off, right? So it's really about like what's important to you. What are you willing to say? Go back and ask somebody, and then let's make this work. Let's wheel and deal. How else can we make this work, right? So maybe it's a perspective of, you know what, I hear you, but how about in 6 months, let's reassess and do a mid-year raise, and let me be allowed to have the opportunity, if I show you that I'm worth it, to increase my salary by another 3%. And it's those type of things that we have every right to ask the question, because what can they do? The worst they can say is no. And you know what? I've been told no millions of times. And when you tell a kid no, that doesn't stop them from asking, right? So from that perspective of like, okay, so they don't offer it, but if you were able to negotiate a 3% raise and you take that 3% raise and you go, let's set it in a bank somewhere or go get some stocks, right? Then we can start to make our money make money for us. And then I don't need your 401k retirement, because now that 3% raise, I created on my own. So it's really just being, thoughtful and creative and resilient to say, no, go ask somebody. No, I'm worth it. And it just, I'm a millennial, and sticking with the company for 25 years, I was like, just bless your heart. I don't know how you do it, because right. So for a lot of those people, because my biggest thing is once you get in with a company, it's harder to negotiate, because you go in, your first instance in is your best opportunity to negotiate everything on the table. Say, do you want me or do you not? So once you get in, it's harder to negotiate these things, and you have to be really strategic. And then I really empower my clients to really go back to that SMART funnel, because you got to talk the talk of HR to tell them, I mean money. And you have to speak a certain way to let them know and to command that respect. So there are ways around it, but it's so important that we negotiate and we tell people, go back, go ask somebody, because I know you're not the final decision maker. You're just the gatekeeper right now. There's somebody else behind the gate that makes the decisions, and I want you to go back and you go tell them, I mean business. It'd be easier if you just let me talk to them, but we have to play these games. But that's the thing that we have to understand, that it's a game, and we got to be ready to make these moves, but you got to be strategic and you got to know what you come to the table with. So I really empower my teams and my clients to what are your skills? What are you passionate about? What are you good at? And then let's really hone in on talking about those things so you can get paid for it and paid your worth and your value for it.
And that is definitely important, but unfortunately, the company that I worked with, they did not offer that. We didn't get PTO, so they only gave us 40 hours of sick time literally last year. So that's unfortunate, but that's why I'm not there anymore. But that is, that's the case. And I do feel bad for the people that have been there for over 25 years, because it's like, what does retirement look like for someone who's in their 60s and 70s, and they still have to work, or they have to end up getting a job at Walmart just to make ends meet, because they don't have retirement.
It is unfortunate, and I go back to that generational societal programming that tells us that we have to stay at these companies that long, and it's a mindset that says you have to stay there, because there really is no reason that you have to do anything unless you decide. And I'm always tell my people, whatever you decide, it's true. So you have to make the decision. And once you made that decision, it's true. So if you decide to stay with a company that tells you, no, I'm not giving you that, you have to make that decision. Am I really going to stay with them? Because they've made it clear, right? They said black and white, this is what we're doing. This is not what we're going to give you. We don't value you in that way. And you have to make the decision. Am I going to stay with this company that does not value me in this way? And luckily for you, you said no. I know my worth and I know what I can bring to the table and I know what's mine and you don't, so I'm leaving you. And I think that's one of a very important thing to bring up. At what point do we cut ties, right? Too often, especially women, we stay in these positions, even in relationships and circumstances that compromise us, that don't set us up for good. And why? You work with a company 25 years and they can't invest in you and you got to get a part-time job at Walmart, when you really should be putting your feet up, I say no. I say no. I say no, and I say I can find something better. I can find it. And I've done, I've jumped and said, you know what? I say no. And I'm leaving. And I got to praying and said, Lord, I only got 2 weeks worth of this paycheck. Let me find something, right?
Right.
I've been there because I was just like, you know what? I know enough that this isn't for me and I will jump. And I know that I've got wings and I'm going to fly. It may not feel like it. It may feel like, that parachute is not going to pull and it's not going to open, but it does. It always does. And you know what? I think we just have to trust ourselves. And I feel like a lot of times we don't really trust ourselves. We don't trust or have security in our skills and our ability and what we bring to the table. And it's a mindset issue. And I really work with a lot of women, and it's really imposter syndrome. It's the symptoms of imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And we really get to the root cause. And a lot of times, a lot of these things, they go back to our childhood. They go back to the stories that we were told, the traumatic events, and they hold us back and we don't realize it. So I think it's so important. In the same way, I did a talk on this. What do you say? When you say no to something, you're saying the opposite to something else. So I say no to my boss, I'm working late. By me saying no to that, I say yes to my self-care. I say yes to my family time. I say yes in pouring my energy into the things that I love and creating. And in the same time, when you say yes to something with staying with a company that doesn't value you, you say no to your retirement. You say no to the things that make you happy. You say no to your health, because when you're 65, 70 years old, you should not be standing on your feet that long, chasing after some badass kids in Walmart, trying to chase some candies. No, so I really focus on like this, like, what are you saying yes to? And what are you saying no to? And really, thinking about the duality of the decisions and what comes out of our mouth and saying, are you okay with that? Is that really what you want? Because a lot of times we don't really think about it. We think too short-sighted. And we're just like, well, I need this paycheck to, pay the rent. But I'm like, you know what? Is it worth it? Is it really worth it? Because sometimes, our people, especially women, we are so scrappy. We will stretch 15 cents for $1. So why doubt yourself? And I always say, when you bet on yourself, you will be guaranteed to win, but you have to have that confidence and that internal self-love to just say, hey, what are you really doing? What are you really saying yes to? And what are you really saying no to? And I find, like those money ideas, they're there. We have billion-dollar empires within us, but we say no. We say no instead and say, I'll just take minimum wage because that's safe and secure. That's what everybody else has always done. That's what, my family, my circle, my network, that's what they do. And they say, that's what I can do too. When I bring these ideas up to them, they say I'm crazy and I believe them. It's that mindset. It's what do you choose to jump into?
And I think fear is one of the major things because I've, heard people say, especially women, oh, I can't, leave this job because I got rent, I got my car note, I got my kids, all these financial responsibilities, I can't leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it becomes a pigeonhole situation because you're not happy there, you're stressed out, and your health is at risk because you don't even really want to be at this job, but you need it.
Correct. And it goes back to a lot of times we can find and we can get deferment, like to say, you know what, I'm having economic hardship. Let me call you up, bill collector, mortgage landlord. Let me just explain the situation. And I think that's where we get caught up. It's just like we're so like I have to solve all of this by myself. I'm not even asking the questions of what's available to me. So we put ourselves in these situations and there's so many escape routes, but we're so focused on the wrong things that we don't see there's an exit for you here. There's another exit for you there. You have a multitude of options, but fear keeps our vision limited. It has these blinders on that we can't see. The door is wide open for you to leave and pursue another opportunity, but you get so stuck in this mindset of fear, false evidence appearing real, that you can't see really that you just need to leave. Because when you leave, the blessing is on the other side, but it takes you to have faith to move forward and know that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. So I totally hear you on that one, that there's so many women and that's why I'm so focused on moms, because a lot of women are in compromising positions. They're facing domestic violence, and money, the fear of not having money keeps them stuck in these places of being unhappy. And I was just like, no, you have a choice. There's a path for you. But first you have to make that decision. You got to make the decision. And is it worth it for you? Because it's got to come. And, I love working with people that are so broken that they've hit rock bottom. And they say, I've hit rock bottom. Just show me. Because what I've been doing isn't working. And sometimes it takes getting to that rock bottom to realize this wasn't the life I dreamed of when I was 5. I wanted to be fabulous and rich. And now I'm here and I'm broken. And I love to uplift those people because they are so surprised that all of this beauty and wealth is in them already. And it's just a matter of just letting them know that it's already there and there's a path for you. You just have to take that first step. I tell people, there's only one way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So it's in that same vein. It's just one step, one decision. And then once you get that momentum going, it's so beautiful. So I encourage anybody that feels like they're stuck in unhappiness and it's really like the reason why they're staying unhappy is because they have financial obligations. I say no, sister. There is more to life than being unhappy, because being unhappy is expensive. Like you said, your health comes into play, right? So if you want to make this money, the number one step is get happy, because it's cheap. It's cheap to be happy. It's when you're unhappy that it's just expensive. We spend so much money when we're unhappy, right? We eat the wrong way because we're trying to make ourselves feel good. We stress eat. We overspend trying to compensate and find this happiness and this instant gratification. So the cheapest thing that I say to people, you want money, get happy, because that is the way to it. You want money, get happy.
That makes sense. Okay, so someone had a question in regards to how can they increase their credit score?
Yes. Getting organized. Getting organized is key. Too many times we don't pay our bills on time. And that's the number one way. The biggest impact is timely payments. They want to see you pay your bills on time. So one of the best ways that I find, I use a Google Calendar, set some calendar reminders. I love putting things on auto pay. When I tell you it is the best feeling to get paid and not to have to worry about any bills, because I know they're going out on time and I don't have to worry about it. It just goes and I'm fine. And that is such a freeing feeling of not having to be like, oh, wait, did I pay this? Oh, wait, I need to wait. Hold on. Let me count. Let me see. Can I carry the one? What is this? Oh, I can't pay that. You know what I mean? So getting organized is the easiest way. Getting organized, paying your bills on time. And when I say organized, really from the perspective of those two money buckets where there's usually holes. entertainment and food. Those two, I find when you decrease and really get strategic and intentional about those money buckets, and then getting your stuff on auto pay. I always tell people, start off with one, then up it, create another bill that you can get on auto pay. Because it's really about creating that security, that level of confidence to put your stuff on auto pay and just trust it. Then that's the number one way. Getting organized and paying your bills on time. So no overdraft fees and getting your stuff paid on time. I love signing up for those auto drafts. And a lot of times you'll get discounts if you sign up for an auto payment. So they love that. So you can actually leverage some benefits and some perks with just setting your bills to be auto paid. So that is the number one way to increase your credit score, is increasing your on-time payments.
And the other question they had is, can it increase within 3 months?
It depends. Okay, so this is a great question. So your credit score, I like to think of it as a report card, and it's averages, right? So depending on the average of your financial decisions, depends on how quickly it can move. So someone that has a financial history that's only maybe like 5 or 6 years of financial decisions that they've done versus someone that's got 40 years, it's going to take a little bit more time because all of that works on averages. So it depends. Everybody's credit history and decisions are different. But I have seen, and let me be clear, I am not someone that has always had good credit. I'm not ashamed to say it because now I can testify about it. I had a credit score in the low 300s, and when I was making some money, 400s. And it was really because I didn't understand the credit game. I didn't have credit cards, and I didn't realize having credit is one of the ways to boost your credit.
I was the same, yep.
So many people, we're walking around here, I don't have credit debt. Well, you probably got a low credit score because the credit game is about debt and how do you manage your debt. So it depends on the past decisions that you made. So if you don't have a long history, then it's easier to move your averages. But if you have a shorter history, then it is easier to make moves. I was able to take my 300 credit score and boost it to a 700 credit score in less than, I want to say less than 9 months. But like I said, I didn't have credit cards, right? So I didn't have all that background noise of the averages. So once I did get credit cards and I paid them on time, it was very easy, right? So it really depends on your personal credit history and the past financial decisions, what that means. I know a lot of women, they go through divorce and the ex did all these horrible things and bankruptcy, those things take time. So it really depends on your own history, and based on what's in your credit report. A lot of times too, what I find is I had a lot of inaccuracies. I never really stopped and looked at it with a fine-tooth comb. And I noticed that I was getting dinged for things because my student loans wasn't reporting correctly. And that was part of the reason why my credit score was so low, because I had all these mistakes on it. So I really encourage people to really look what's out there and holding people accountable. Do believe I had Navient on the phone and help me understand Navient. I done went through all this stuff and you've been reporting wrong. And, it's so important that we look at these things because it costs us money, these mistakes, and nobody's going back to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that high interest rate that you have on your car is because I reported the information inaccurately. That's not happening. So you really have to be an advocate for yourself. And one of the things that you want to do is hold these big corporations accountable. Are they, giving the information to the credit bureau in an accurate fashion? If not, you need to document it and write some letters and let people know so that they can fix it immediately, because there is no retroactive action, you know? So it's important that you keep your eyes on these things. So there are some things that you can do despite your credit history and the length of it to help boost it, but it's something that it's a long-term game. So it is harder to say, you know what, in 3 months, can I see a move? In a legal fashion, I know there's a lot of companies out there that'll claim that, oh, we'll delete all these things and, you know, it'll work for the short term, but it'll come back. You know, there's things, if it is your debt, it will come back. You cannot delete things that are rightfully so. You know, you have to work and you have to pay due for the things that you have done. So I think it's really important. I see a lot of people that spend a lot of money, you know, with these credit repair companies saying, you know, we'll get rid of this debt. We'll boost your credit scores by 500 points. It's going to be so amazing. They pay all this money. Either one, they don't see the results, or two, the results are not long lived. So they end up in the same cycle that they were to begin with. And now they're just all out that cash. And there's really there's no retribution that they can take, because the actions that these people were taking were illegal to begin with. I've seen some where they have them file police reports and create these false claims, you know? So you can't really go after a company and say, I filed a police report because they told me to, and it's not really true, but this is what they told me I had to do to increase my credit score. Like, that's not going to work. So I think it's so important too that, you know, it goes back to that instant gratification. If it took you years to make this mess, it's not going to get fixed in 3 months. It's just not realistic. And anybody that tells you so is probably a scam to begin with. So I really challenge people to really scrutinize anybody that's selling a quick fix, because it's not really a fix.
And as you spoke on I actually had somebody ask the question about something was on their credit. They went through a company and they took it off, but sometime later it was back on there. So the question that they had is, should they start paying on it if they haven't paid on it in, say, for instance, 3 years?
So what I would always say is, what's the statute of limitations? So check the dates, because after 7 years, like, it's done, right? They've had their opportunity. So I wouldn't recommend reaching out to a debtor where you're at the 6 year and 6 month mark, because it's about to fall off. So once you start to reach out, like, you reset the clock. So you want to be really strategic. And first step is pulling your credit report and assessing the date. And say, where are we on that 7 year mark? And is that something that I really want to reach out to? Because if I reach out, you reset that clock. So one, being really strategic from that perspective. And then, yeah, I'm very much of like, you need to pay the debts that you owe. You created the debt. So yes, I would definitely, if it's not something that's about to fall off and it's going to be sitting there for a while, I would call them up and say, look, what can we do? A lot of times they just want their money. So you start the negotiation process of, you know, start off low, and it's that wheel and deal game. But then you say, okay, then I need you to delete yourself off my credit report. That's one thing that you want to do, and make as a stipulation. Sometimes they will say yes, and sometimes they'll say no. But the most important thing is that you're paid, right? You want to get that status that you have paid per agreement. So you come up with an agreement with them and you paid per the agreement, and that closes it off. So yes, it's unfortunate. That company did some funny business and it fell off for a little while, but then the debtor was able to prove to the credit bureaus, like, no, we're rightfully supposed to be on here. And, you know, you have to decide, where am I on that 7 year statute? And then say, is this worth something that I need to just wait a little bit and it's going to fall off anyways? Or, you know what, I need to just go ahead, pull up my big grown up panties and just say, you know what, I made a silly decision. I wasn't appropriate. And then sometimes too, just tell people like they're humans on the other side. So that's the one thing too, that you want to be really strategic about. Once you start reaching out to people, you need to be, in the position to start paying some money. So don't reach out to anyone unless you're willing and ready to make payments or to really, give them a lump sum. I always like to say, your raises, your bonuses, your tax refunds, those are great times to like start, having those wheeling and dealing. And they're more open, especially during those times, because they know you have more money and they just want to write the stuff off the books as well. They want to get paid. So I think it's don't reach out to anyone unless you really have the money to really, start making payments, because you don't want to reopen something and then they report to the credit bureaus that you're not making your payments per the agreement. So that's kind of counterproductive of what you're trying to do. So you really want to get clear about what you can and can't do, when's the timing of it, and then reach out with a purpose and then negotiate. Try to get them to delete it. Sometimes they will and sometimes they won't. But I think it's important to really have that you've paid per agreement and the account is finally closed. So I think those are the biggest things, is just to really own your debts, right? Just own up to it. Once you're able to own up to it, like it takes a lot of the pressure off. So that would be my advice for that person.
And someone asks, is it better to rent, lease, or buy when it comes to automobiles and home ownership?
That's such a personal question. It is. Me personally, I have moved, let's see, I have lived Florida, Chicago, New York, North Carolina, now Virginia. And in my industry, I moved around a lot. So it didn't personally make sense for me to buy at that time because I was very much like, and I said this earlier, the best chance for you to make more money is when you're new at a company. And oftentimes once you get in, you get locked in this 1%, 2% merit increase if you're really good and you can really push 4%, but that's not really a lot. So I personally, in my industry, I moved around a lot. So renting for me made sense. But when I traveled a lot because I was driving out to the different stores and checking different districts, so leasing was not a good option for me for my car. So it really depends on your lifestyle and what works for you. I know some people that, they feel comfortable renting from the perspective of they don't want the overhead commitment of owning something. There's a lot of women that are like, I don't feel comfortable about, when something breaks the water heater, I like having the ability to just call the landlord. It's a personal preference. And me at this stage in my life, now I've bought, so it really depends on where you are in your lifetime. Now I have kids and, I've settled down, and I've got air quotes on settle down because I'm to see the world. So it just depends. And it's really your personal preference of where you are in your life cycle and what feels good to you. I think it's important, at one stage, I mean, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, would I buy a home? I would be like, hell no, there's no way. And now I'm in a different place where I'm like, yes, I'm into this. And, I want to buy more real estate. I want to have more than one home. So it really depends on where you are in your life. And I think it's important to like, just really take inventory. Like, what do you need and what option best suits you? So it depends. I know people don't really like that. They want like a hardcore, but everybody's so different and what they value is different. So it's really just depends. Like I know one queen, she has a house here in Virginia where I'm at, but then she has a condo in Florida, and that's where she goes in vacations. And so it just depends on the lifestyle that you want and what's important to you. Is it important that probably now if I were to where I'm at right now, I'm not driving as much. So I was just like, geez, leasing a car would be pretty good right now because the mileage, I wouldn't have to put that much on, and then I could
Right.
just flip it out. But a couple years ago, I was doing a lot of traveling, and I like the leasing option wouldn't have worked for me. I would have been upside down. So it really just depends on where you are in your stage of life and what's important to you and what you value. So it's kind of like, what works best for you, do you, and then just get informed of like what are the pros and cons. And then I think that's the biggest thing is getting informed of the benefits that you can reap from making a certain choice one way or the other.
Okay. And how do you balance family, career, and your personal time?
Oh my goodness. So right now, that is definitely a topic in my group. Um, this person, this queen, she was so amazing. She was like, right now, it feels like we are walking a tightrope with stilettos on, balancing our crowns, right? Because we are a bunch of queens
Hmm.
and we got our crowns on. So it's a fine act. It's a fine act, let me tell you, because these are not regular, stilettos. These aren't Steve Madden stilettos. These are Louboutin stilettos, right? The red bottom stilettos on this tightrope. I think it's important to just be, kind to ourselves. And that's the biggest thing. It's just being graceful with yourself. We are not robots, right? Certain things are going to take more time. Certain things aren't. It's going to be a quick fix, but it's just being okay. Yesterday was just like, I was just so drained. And I mean, I think she started school on Tuesday. What's today? Thursday? I'm
Yeah.
already like, when is school break? When is the school vacation? And one girl's like, girl, the weekend is coming. I was like, oh my God, thank you for that reminder. I needed that because I sure enough was going to pop my head into that Zoom classroom and ask that teacher because I'm like, oh, I need more time. I'm not ready. But it's just a matter of just, taking it one day at a time and being okay with yourself and having grace. The one thing that I've done recently that has been a lifesaver for me, and it's really helped me be okay with it. I got a whiteboard off of Amazon, and I wrote all the things in my head, wrote all the things that I needed to do, just wrote it all out. That whiteboard was full. Then I took the eraser and erased it. Just the act of getting it out and erasing it and letting it go, and just knowing that it's okay. When I get to it is when I get to it. And I'm not going to beat myself up if I didn't get all the check marks on my to-do list, because guess what? Today is here and I need to just be thankful for today. I need to let go of yesterday and not like worry about tomorrow because I don't know if tomorrow is promised. So I just need to be okay with today and live in the moment and to be present and know that I'm not going to be 1,000%. I'm not going to be great in everything, but that's okay because I'm human. And just being okay with that, and then really surrounding myself with a network, right? Because if it wasn't for that queen to tell me that the weekend was coming, I don't know. I don't know. So I think really having a good network and just being kind to yourself and just enjoy today because that's all we have. That's all we have is today. And I think being present in today is that's the priority. How can we just manage today? Because that's all we really have, right? We only have this time that we're living in. And I think we spend too much, especially women and especially mothers, about worrying about the past and worrying about the future, and we lose the blessing of today. So I really try to keep myself focused on that. Like it's just 24 hours. That's my goal, is to enjoy these 24 hours and just being okay with it all. It's not going to be perfect. Right now it's a blessing because I'm like, wow, the babies did not break the door down and, make a mess of the things of my perfection. It's just being okay with it because it's life and it gets messy and that's what makes it fun. So I think just really not taking ourselves so seriously, and just being okay with it. It's okay. Because guess what? There are a million other people in the same boat as us,
Hmm.
doing the same dance as us. And I think sometimes too, we see social media and we compare. Ugh, death of comparison. Like, look at them. Look at all these things that they're doing. Why can't I be like them? They're feeling the same thing you're feeling.
Right.
So just understanding that everybody has to put on their pants one leg at a time, and you
Hmm.
just do the best that you can and just being okay with that. Yeah, so that's how I balance one day at a time.
And what money wellness advice would you give, especially during this time of pandemic?
Mm. So one of the things that I definitely, I did a talk on this is, we all have our money history and our money baggage. And the one thing that we can do is look at what we're saying in front of our kids, and the things that they're picking up right now, because this is unprecedented times. And this is a time that we have to be really careful. And we have to really sow the seeds into the future. So right now, it's really difficult. We're telling our kids, no, you can't hug other kids. You got to wear a mask. You got to do all these things. So they're really sensitive right now and they're picking up on these changes. So I would say the biggest money wellness is watch what you say in front of your kids about money. Um, Ask the open-ended questions instead of saying, I can't afford this. Ask your kids, why do you want this? What would this make you feel like if you had this? What are some ways that you think you can get some money to pay for this? Asking open-ended questions about money. And then really, in the same way, I labeled the talk possibility versus affordability. Really just living in the possibility. And I think that's so important with our money mindset and money wellness is really think about the possibilities and get lost in the possibilities versus the affordability and all the reasons why you can't do something. Let's focus on all the reasons why we can. And I think that is the biggest thing that I would say in money wellness right now is how are you talking about money and how are you talking about it in front of your kids? Because now when with this unprecedented times of what our kids will say 20 years from now, it's going to be really interesting. And I think now is so important that we really, we love on our kids in that way because a lot of our relationships and our mindsets with people and money, like they carry with us. And, that's the one thing that I worry about, especially the communities of color and these young kids. What kind of money trauma are we, placing on them that's going to impact them 30, 40 years from now? So I think that is the biggest thing that really concerns me. And, I try not to stay up at night thinking of things, but, I'm human and I do. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, geez, what are the kids thinking right now? And how is this going to impact them? And, right now we're all in these closed off quarters and we can't go out. And, right now these money conversations that we're having, they're going to leave such an impact on the kids and the future, so that's the one thing that I would really, caution people to really think about what they're saying. And, kids hear everything, even when they're not in the room, they're listening. So I would really encourage people to be mindful, because the youth is watching and they're seeing so much right now with technology and their access to it. And now, with everything being so virtual, they told us, don't let your kids in front of the screen and you should only let them do it 1 hour max. But here we are as a nation.
Online class.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So a lot of the things that we're saying, we just have to really be careful, because, things are changing and it's moving at a totally different pace. And nobody has been in this position before. No one, globally, no one has ever been here. And it's so important as women, as mothers, even as fathers, as parents, as caretakers, as nurturers, that we just really watch what we say and how we act about money, because it's an energetic tool and we want to make sure that we're setting them up for success. And I can see, I really get worried. Yeah, that concerns me, the money wellness of our future and, what we're setting them up for success with. Are we giving them tools for success, or are we giving them weapons of mass destruction? So that's what keeps me up. And I try to, have those conversations with the queens that I work with my own girls. And, it's funny when they go to the park and they talk about these things, and it's interesting to see how little kids interact with each other too. So, sometimes it is important that you tell your kids the right thing, because they will be a light to someone else and they'll have other kids think differently. So it's important. So that's the one thing from a money wellness perspective is think about the kids right now and what they're taking on at a different pace. All like our whole world just changed. It seems like overnight. And we're talking about things more candidly in tighter spaces, so it's so important that we're intentional and we're really being thoughtful from that perspective.
Yeah. And how can you be contacted for money coaching services?
Yes, you can find me on Facebook, Carmelle Cottrell. You can go to bellejulz.com, Belle, BelleJulz.com. And yes, I'm out there. Come find me. I also have a YouTube channel, See Belle Julz. My Facebook handle is also See Belle Julz, the letter C, Belle Julz, as well as Instagram is See Belle Julz. So yes, find me and let's talk money.
I really thank you for taking the time and educating us today on money because money is always a question, how to handle it, credit, things like that is a huge topic that sometimes nobody wants to talk about, but is
Yes.
something that rules our world. It's honest, it rules our world. You got to have credit to get a house. You got to have credit to get a car. You got to have credit to get an apartment. You got to have credit for any major spending.
Yeah.
So, I definitely thank you for taking the time and dropping knowledge because, it was some things that I didn't know. So I thank you for that. Thank you for your
I
time.
thank you, LaJune. I love this opportunity. I love working with like-minded queens. So I appreciate you and all that you do and what you bring to the table to push the people forward. So I'm so thankful for you and the opportunity that you afforded me on your platform. So thank you.
All right. Until next time, we'll definitely have you back again, to drop some more knowledge because I think it is definitely important for us to know, especially for kids, especially for women who don't know. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank
Until next time.